one question on item 22-170, Han Quarry Street Project. Remember what that was, Brenda?
I think that's the rock that we didn't put around to finish the.
Oh, for finishing the edging of the streets. Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
All my highlights, I called and she answered earlier, so.
Anything else? Okay. Going on to public forum. First, we have Rick Freeman on handicap parking.
This letter, I gave you all a copy of this letter. It's dated January 27th. Yesterday, as I was leaving my apartment to go over to the hospital, there was a black four-door Nissan pickup truck parked in the handicap parking space next to mine, and there was no handicap placard or tag on the truck. Then today, as I was leaving to do some errands, it was parked there again. There was a man and woman sitting in the truck, so I came to the truck. I told the men that they could not park in the handicap parking space. He coped an attitude with me and said that he was working there so he could park there. I informed him that was all the more reason that he should not be parking there, because he should know better. I told him I was going to call the police on him, and he said that he would move. I said, go ahead and move, but I'm still calling the police. I walked around his truck to get in my truck, and I stopped and took a couple pictures of him parked in the handicapped space. When I got to my truck, I had to ask the lady if she could close her door so I could open my truck door. As she closed her door, she called the assistant director of the housing authority and was telling her that I was upset at them for parking in the handicapped space. I told her to go ahead and tell her that it was Rick who was complaining, so that there would be no misunderstanding. I did call the police and report the situation, and then I left. When I returned over an hour later, the truck was in the parking space again, only this time it was backed into the space. I once again called the police and reported it. Approximately 20 to 30 minutes later, a police officer came to my apartment and asked me if I had been calling the police. Excuse me. If I had been calling the police about a vehicle parked in the handicapped spot, and I told them that I reported them twice. He said that I was not allowed to call 911 for non-emergency items, and I said I was sorry, but there was no other number I had access to. He informed me that I refused to identify myself to the dispatcher, and I told him I was never asked my name or phone number either time I called in. He also informed me that the housing authority manager met him there, and she told him that it was private property and she didn't have a problem with the contractor parking in the handicapped spot. The officer said that I had made a scene numerous times, according to the director, about people parking in the driveway while making deliveries. I said that I had complained a few times, and I informed that I even complained several times about the president of the housing board of directors parking in front of a no parking sign and blocking the drive so you couldn't leave until the vehicle was moved. The officer also told me that the handicap signs were there just as a convenience for us, and he could not enforce it on private property. I said the housing authority was a subsidiary of the city since they are run by a city-appointed board. Therefore, it's public property. Regardless if it is public or private property, Kansas Statute 81.129C states the provisions of subsection A shall be enforced by law enforcement officers on public and private property. The officer also said he thought that for it to be a legal handicap parking place, that the handicap symbol had to be painted on the parking space and the space indicator lines had to be in blue, but he was not sure on that. However, according to the Kansas statute, It only has to be identified with a vertical sign displaying the international symbol for handicap. I am totally upset with rules, regulations, and laws being enforced as to who is who instead of being enforced equally for all. This whole situation was turned around and made me look like the bad person in this situation instead of doing what is right by the rules of the laws. Kansas statute states the minimum punishment is $50 and a maximum punishment of $100 per incident. I have photographic proof that this said truck was parked there at least 2 different times, and I personally believe that the individual should be issued 2 tickets for his violation of the law. I bring this to your attention because there's been the fact that they said they can't enforce it on private property. The police department should know the statutes on that, which says they do enforce it on private and public property. And then the second factor is that if they're a board of the city, aren't they city? Are they private property or are they public property?
I don't have the answer to that off the top of my head, Rick.
Well, that's what I want to find out, you know. But irregardless, it's still illegal to park in a handicap parking place unless you have a placard or a tag. You cannot even block a ramp, a parking place, or anything according to the statutes. And I have the statute that's, like I said, 8.
Right, it's referenced in your letter. Yep.
Right. And, you know, it's just real upsetting that the people who are trying to do the right thing get the blame turned on them.
Thank you, Rick. We'll take it under advisement, have to do a little bit of research. Just for your records, though, the 258-2227 or 2226, either which will work.
The phone lines were down that day. I tried that.
In your letter, you said you didn't have access to any other
I didn't have access to any other phone number because that number was down.
Clarifying that you knew what those phone numbers were.
Yeah. Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Rick. Jeff Leedy, building permit fees.
Somebody got one without a page.
Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Good. Well, Glenn Callan and Dick Claypool and myself are here on behalf of First Baptist Church, Herington. And we are applying for a building permit to begin construction of our new structure September 1st this year. So we're very excited about that. I guess basically what it boils down to is we're here to ask the commission if we could get reduced or maybe even forgiven our building permit fees. I mean, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and so far the funding for the project has come from the congregation and a few outside contributors, but it's all gifts and ties and blood, sweat, and you know, the building, we're preparing a $1.5 million project. It is going to be very expensive. We just think that $3,005 that we have to pay for a building permit could be maybe part of our parking lot or something. That's all we're here for. A reduced would be greatly appreciated. Forgiven would be even more greatly appreciated. That's, I guess, where we're at.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Frank Meyer, water connection. How we doing, Mr. Meyer?
As you may recall, about 22 years ago, Shirley and I bought some property on the west side of the lake, and ever since that time, we drilled a well, and it's 92 grains of hardness. The water is not good at all. I won't go into elaboration. So we've been trying for 22 years to get hooked up to city water. First of all, we did go with the Marion County number 5 Rural Water District. The engineer did all the engineering and everything out there, and that's not a problem of yours. But it fell through for many different reasons, and the Rural Water District didn't happen. I appreciate what the city has done in the last 2 years trying to get water out there to the lake. But, you know, I was in Topeka visiting with Department of Commerce, some of the folks I worked with some 20 years ago. And they said with the money that has been taken out of KDOT and all the different agencies is over $10 billion, that's with a B. And they said it'd probably be at least 10 years before they'll be giving any grants of this size to cities or anybody else. So, according to the contract, I've got to have, the city of Hope has got to have your permission to allow anybody to hook up. I think you get a copy that I brought in of the contract. So what I'm doing is asking for permission to hook up, send to Hope permission to allow me to hook up, put a meter in and run water up to my house. The line, for whatever your information, I'm proposing that we hook on to the Hope water line on the west side of Sage Avenue, on the north side of 500 Avenue. It will run up on my property, it will not be on the city property at all or anything. So that's what I want. Send them a letter, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Natasha Barnett, policy meeting.
Okay, we're going to attempt to do this.
I have faith.
You have more faith than I do. I am going to give you each a copy of this. It's just stuff I kind of pulled off, that way you kind of would understand what I'm talking about. And maybe, hopefully, we will get something that will stop some questionable behavior or questionable moral issues. Will you see Brad? Okay, that way, because I didn't check to see if legally everything could be done that's on these lists or not. Okay, the first deal that I handed you guys would be actually a stricter policy on who you hire. Certain things that would be acceptable of our employees and not acceptable behaviors. And my main issue is basically that there has been questionable issue of employees in general. This isn't the first time I've brought it up, so we'll go from there. My main issue is that there is no standard set for those who are paid with tax dollars money, and seems the more questionable behaviors you do or have, the more you are accepted. Such behaviors being accepted by this commission and community only makes Herington look dishonest, unethical, and immoral. How is a Herington resident supposed to feel that they are safe and that justice will be served when we have people in positions that have questionable behaviors and they are meant to provide us with a safe and just community? Anyone holding a position that is paid by taxpayers' dollars should be held to a higher standard than the average person, and the fact that there is no policy giving a high standard is absurd. This truly is the only place that would hire somebody of questionable behavior in their police department, possibly, and that is the main people that is supposed to protect this community. If this was a school, would they hire anybody under investigation for a crime against a child? If they did hire somebody under investigation, or possibly, would everyone think it was okay for their child to be taught by such an individual? I would like to think this community would never accept a choice like that from the school. If this was the doctor's office or the hospital that hired somebody under investigation for malpractice, would you be the first in line to see that doctor? How about the bank hiring a teller that's under investigation for theft, or the accountant being investigated for embezzlement? Would you feel your finances were safe with that individual? If this has not convinced you how wrong some of the decisions made and that they need to be corrected, I will say a few more things. That being caught dishonest, period, and being in a position in which you could or are supposed to be held to the highest integrity is bothersome. I question it because what if a call comes in and say an officer that has been less than honest before, prior, whatever, and that citizen said he beat me up, this is where these marks came from. Could we sit there and say everything that that person has said is truthful, you know, and could be accepted, or is there a possibility for liable from us hiring him? My next question is if a police officer is hired that is considered dishonest in any way, shape, or form, past, present, or future, say they get a call and it ends up in a murder investigation and their testimony is needed. It is crucial for a conviction. The second that officer gets on the stand, he's shut down because he's been found to be dishonest in the past. That is not okay behavior. I hope the half a dozen reasons I have given you are enough to see that there's a major need for a policy setting a standard for all current employees and a much higher standard for those in our police department and anyone in a position to handle crimes as well as future applicants. I am a homeowner, taxpayer, and voter that totally disapproves of my tax dollars paying for anyone under investigation for a crime and believe that believe that you should ask the city attorney what options are available to handle this situation now and in the future immediately. You are voted in to do what is best for this community, and by doing nothing about the extremely low standards set and these employees with less than honest behavior, you are not doing what is best for the community. If none of these reasons are enough to see a huge problem with the choices recently made and the need for a policy setting a high standard, you may need to resign and get your heads checked. Thanks.
Thank you, Natasha. Gabrielle Simmons, about our favorite trailer house.
Yes. Hi, I'm Gabrielle Simmons, 15 North 12th Street. I was just wondering, it's been 2 years and I keep getting the same answers over and over that you're still dealing with the bank. Just kind of wondering, you know, where it's all going, if it's going to be sitting there forever.
No, it is not going to be sitting there forever. As a matter of fact, the last update,
It was the last meeting or the meeting before last I asked about that?
Because it's just getting worse and worse shape.
The last-
It's just getting worse and worse.
the last update we got from Brad is that we were waiting on the judge to sign the order, and then after that, there was a mandatory waiting period before we could move it. Basically, what's taken so long is you cannot touch a mortgaged piece of property until you get some sort of resolution with the owner of that mortgage. Because we removed the mobile home, and then they come back and say, hey, what'd you do with my goods? Now you owe me $40,000 for my mobile home. So you have to get some sort of release. Well, the mortgage company that owned that trailer house no longer has a presence in the state of Kansas. So Brad has been searching for how to get to these people legally. He did get an order in front of a judge to sign off on releasing it, and then after that, there's a mandatory waiting period, and I apologize, I don't remember how many days off the top of my head. But as soon as we legally can touch it, we absolutely intend to do so.
Okay.
That has stayed in our forefront, trust me.
And I think other than last meeting, it has been asked about every meeting.
Yeah, because it's just,
Everything.
well, it's like it's slowly falling apart more and more. Pieces are starting to come across the street and, you know, I
Even
mean.
with everything this commission is dealing with right now, it's still on the top 10 list.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
appreciate
I
it.
think we all love that trailer just as much as you.
Thanks.
And then love is a,
That's a special kind of love.
is a
That's special.
thank you, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
All right, VFW, are we ready to go back to number 2?
Congratulations here.
The individual, the awardee, is not here yet, but we can tell everybody what the award's for.
We can do that, or if you want, we could just keep postponing and catch you toward the, later on in the meeting.
Let's table it for right now and reschedule, will you please, Mr. Mayor?
Later during this meeting,
No,
for another
another
meeting.
date.
Yeah.
We can do that too.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay. Brenda, if you'll add it onto the agenda for the next meeting, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
And lady.
And lady, I'm sorry. We didn't leave you out, Adge.
No worries.
All right, do we have any additions to the agenda? Additions or changes? I would like to move item 7 to 16B because Chuck's not here yet. And on that same topic, I would like to add item 16A, consider building fee. Reduction in case of First Baptist Church. Once again, that's item 16A. Consider building fee reduction in case of First Baptist Church. And then item 16B will be as currently listed as number 7 on the agenda. Correct. Item 8, recommend we remove from the agenda. We'll add it to the next meeting since Gary's not here. Actually, we will go ahead and leave it on here
I
because
was
we're going to
gonna say-
continue to the next meeting. You're right. We'll leave 8 on there for right now.
Yeah.
Good catch. I even wrote that note down, couldn't read my own note. Do we have any other additions, changes? Then I make a motion, we approve the agenda with the addition of item 16A, consider building fee reduction in case of First Baptist Church, moving item 7 to 16B.
Second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Hawks?
Aye.
Commissioner Nestle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza? Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 8, Gary Young regarding occupancy of 801 North D Street. As previously stated, Gary Young's not here today. Recommend we continue the item 8 to our next meeting. Yes, Rick?
As a citizen, I have a problem with that because he was told at the last meeting that he had to have certain amount of progress done by this time or else he was out, period.
I can tell you they were ripping off the whole one half of the house the other day.
I understand and I appreciate your concern, and I still make the motion we continue it due to the circumstances as to why Mr. Young is not here today, which I'm not going to release in open meeting, but they're significant enough that I think that a 2-week continuance is perfectly justified.
Second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Hawks?
Aye.
Commissioner Nestle?
No.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Consider appointment of Director Number 2 to the KME Board of Directors.
I move we approve Jason Alt as director number 2 to the KMA Board of Directors.
Second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Hawks?
Aye.
Commissioner Nestle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Consider appointment of alternate to the KME Board of Directors. Who's the alternate now?
You're the mayor
I
now.
was gonna say, so,
I move that we make Dave Jones the alternate for the KME Board of Directors.
second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Hawks?
Aye.
Commissioner Nestle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. It is a railroad town, that's right. Distressed property, I would like to open the distressed property hearing, Mall 5 West Walnut. Again.
That's a nice smile, Brett.
We don't have anything new to talk about or information or,
Actually, we do.
okay?
In terms of the previous discussion regarding some assistance with this, in terms of the grant process, we are able to go forward, and correct me if I have forgotten or I've already told you part of this. We have the ability to go ahead with cities and proceed on. In talking with Chris Steinkamp, he strongly recommends we do that. based on additional conversations he's had, unless something is dramatically changed in recent weeks, there is funding for this type of process. They are more than willing to assist us in terms of the evaluative approach. We need to get the application in. That kind of stopped a couple weeks ago based upon personnel issue, and so we need to proceed on that. But one thing that we're going to have to contact the owner about, but preliminary discussions on that earlier between them and the city manager didn't seem to be an issue. So we're going to have access to that building. Assuming we have that, we can proceed and get the application in and get an indication reliably of what kind of funding would be available to us, which is going to have some impact at least on what our alternatives are and what we can and cannot do based on code. So the thought would be to go ahead and try to move ahead on that immediately, on that application. Chris can do most of that, what little we can provide for through the city, and then make contact with the owners and confirm that they have no issue with our allowing an inspection of it and have unfettered access for that purpose to complete the application process. Once that's done, as I said, they will give us a fairly good indication of what we would have available, what they would be willing to consider, or be able to approve potentially to assist in doing the remediation. That would give us a significant benefit in terms of how we discuss this with them.
And then how does that play into the distressed property hearing? How do we proceed from here?
You don't want this to drop off the radar. Basically, once again, would probably continue, but that's only on the basis that we'd like to complete the application and get the information from the state before we proceed any further. Based on our prior discussions and what I perceive to be the commission's perspective on inheriting this problem, we're looking for an alternative that allows us to get remediated and still not be on the hook for it in terms of taxpayers. This is our best solution.
How far out would you think we need to continue it?
I asked him that today, and he said it's a little bit difficult. He'd need to make another phone call to them now to see if we could get in the next few days. But 4 to 6 weeks is probably reasonable for them to get out here and inspect, unless they've gotten really booked up in the last couple of weeks. The last time that there was contact with them, they were available to come do that. The only thing we have to do is go to that owner.
So continue it till the first meeting in March?
Well, if it's 6 weeks, I'll be the second meeting.
Well, but if you go the first one, if they're not ready for us, great, we continue 2 more weeks, whereas if we continue it till the second one, then we're kind of there.
Right.
Yeah, doing it on a shorter leash is not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly. And worst case scenario, we sit here, we open it, we close it, and continue
Yeah,
again.
but at least by then, we should have some idea how far along they are.
Exactly.
I would suggest that is not a bad alternative.
Real quickly,
What happens to the property taxes that are due on it now if the city is the one to actually take it?
We wouldn't be the owners still. The Kimball's would still be owning it, but
Okay.
we would have the ability to apply for the
Okay.
Brownsfield. And-
Okay,
Yeah.
which is what Brad was just explaining.
And has no effect on liability, it is still all in Kimball's.
because it stays in his name. Okay,
It's still.
thanks, that's it.
So, do we have a motion?
Looking for the clarification.
I move that we continue this to the March 6th meeting.
Second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Hux?
Aye.
Commissioner Missler? Aye. Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye.
We've moved it, so
Closed. That threw me, because we just continued this, we're not really closing. But, got it. If you open it, you have to close it. Consider reappointment of one member to the library board, term to expire March 14th, 2022. Make a motion, we appoint one member to the library board, term to expire March 14, 2022. I'm sorry, appoint Gloria Landsberg.
Second.
Discussion. Brenda?
Commissioner Knox?
Aye.
Commissioner Nessa? Aye. Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Consider reappointment of one member of the Dickinson County EDC, term to expire March 1st, 2019, in case of Cassie Moore.
I move we appoint Cassie Moore to the Dickinson County EDC, term to expire March 1st, 2019.
Second.
I can't make the motion and second, so you're gonna have to do something.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Knox?
Aye.
Commissioner Nessa?
Aye.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza? Aye. Mayor?
Aye. Consider appointment of one member of the Hilltop Advisory Board, term to expire March 10th, 2021, case of Joan Madden. Make a motion, we appoint Joan Matten to the Hilltop Advisory Board, term to expire March 10th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Brenda?
Commissioner Knox?
Aye.
Commissioner Nessa?
Aye.
Commissioner Hager?
Aye.
Commissioner Souza? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Review and discuss Article 2, Dogs, Cats, and Domestic Animals, 2-201, 2-204, and 2-209.
I was the lovely individual that wanted to bring this to the attention. I've been contacted by a resident who was cited for a first offense for an unregistered dog at large, and her total citation was $395. I was able to look at it. I asked her to give me a picture of it to see what was going on, because from what we did here, sitting in this room, that fine should be $100 plus lien warden. That is what it says in 2204. The ordinances that were cited on the citation itself were 2201 and 2204. I didn't really understand the reasons 2201 was put on there. 2202 is the ordinance that states that the city clerk has to keep a book of all registered animals. So that is why 2202 is cited in 2204, which then sets forth all of the fines as it is. If you guys aren't aware, we changed these, is that 2 years ago? Last year?
Last year, I think it was just last year. It was last year.
I think she's last year.
Yeah,
So,
Before you.
we talked about it after I was on, but we have not changed anything since I've been on.
So for anybody who is not aware, for unregistered animals, first offense is $100 plus boarding, second offense is $200 plus boarding, and third, or any subsequent offense, is $300 plus boarding. If your animal is registered through the city, first offense is $50 plus boarding, second offense is $100 plus boarding, and third, or any subsequent offense, is $200 plus boarding. And if your animal is not fixed, that's an extra $50. So hey, stay in it, guys.
Question, as far as 2201 goes, I know if you don't register your animal by the first day of March, then you
have to
pay
pay
$15. So is that why, is that why 2201 was cited? Was this dog not registered?
Well, and also that would affect the fees that you paid under 204.
Exactly. So that, I mean, it makes sense to me that 2201 was cited. I'm not saying the 395 makes sense,
Yeah,
but
that is the issue. The extra issue that she had with the ticket was the $200 penalty that was put on there. 2209 states that any person violating or permitting the violation of any provision of this ordinance shall, upon conviction in municipal court, be fined a sum not less than $200. So based on how the ordinance is written and how it is related, that $200 shouldn't be placed on any citation unless they are found guilty in court. So, her concern was, after reading the ordinance, she felt her fine should be $100 plus her boarding bill, because she knew her dog was not registered. She came to the city immediately, made sure that her dog was registered for this year. All the vaccines were good, so now she's looking at $395 after already paying boarding bill separately. And the fines weren't coming together for her. After looking at the ordinances several times, they didn't come together for me, so I asked for it.
Brad?
Okay. When we went ahead and made the changes to 2204, we were trying to address recidivism and also, I agree, and looking back at the notes, simplify this to some extent. We specified that it would be a more onerous penalty if they not only were at large and you'd been convicted before, but also if they were unregistered. So that all makes perfect sense, and that's what we addressed only in 2204. 2201 is a separate standalone that if your dog is anywhere and the animal control officer should have one, encounters them and they are unregistered, then that is the only one that would be cited. And given the way it is written, you fall back on 2209. Anywhere in any of the codes that we have, if you don't have specified fines, then there's usually a section at the end that provides your total comprehensive catch-all sanction, which 2209 does. And it says, if you're found guilty of this, then you will pay a fine between $200 and $1,000, and you can be sentenced to incarceration, or at least an underlying sentence of up to 30 days at the judge's discretion. In investigating this more fully, what Judge Barker did, people would want to come in and pay this. Their dog had been picked up, and they want to go ahead and get everything taken care of in advance, so they come in to pay it. Well, we've got specified amounts in 2204, but if you're charged with 2201, you almost have to come to court. And so what he said was, let's just take the bottom end of this. I have no discretion below $200, so if you have someone come in and they want to pay everything off, I'll just make it like a scheduled offense. They pay $200 for a violation of 2201 if they choose to plead guilty or some form of admission to that. 2201 is a standalone. It does not, 2204, we have not addressed it in such a way that if the dog is at large and not registered, that you can't cite both. You actually can. Is it a good idea? Probably not, because it does get to be an extraordinary amount of money in a relative sense very quickly, and I think the intent was to try to address it with 2204. So we need to do further amendments to this if in fact we don't want, the police are doing, I mean, what they did wasn't, you can't tell them, well, that was completely wrong. I found a dog that was out and it wasn't registered, so I cited him for 2201 and at large without registration is a higher fine. So the long and the short of it, by the time you go through all of this and muddle your way through it, that was how that got charged out that way and why that fine and costs get to be so high. What we end up needing to do now, if we don't want that kind of repeated occurrence, there's two ways. One, I can police it because I've got two of those pending right now where I can dismiss out the 2201. Again, I'm not saying the officer did anything wrong based on the way this is written. They have the discretion to charge it out on both. I just don't necessarily see that if we're doing the enhanced fine in 2204 that I'm going to hit somebody or prosecute them for the extra 200 that 2209 calls for at the bottom end for 2201. That is followable.
201F doesn't cover fines under 201 where it lists $15 fine, additional fee for not registering.
That's just a penalty in that particular instance for not registering. If they're found out without registration at all, that's where 2209 comes into play, because that's the penalty section that we don't have anything expressly in there that deals with that issue. We can go ahead and relate the two to each other so this doesn't occur again. But if you're going to charge them under 2204, you won't charge them this way. But they can, you can have an instance where you discover an animal, someone goes and has some concern about being able to read a meter that's in the backyard, and you don't have a curtilage problem, and they're going in there to read it, and there's a dog that they're scared of. They call the police who come out. Dog's legally inside a fenced area, but they know, oh, there's no registration on this animal. It's not at large, so we're going to charge them with 2201. So it can happen, but it's a more of a rarity.
We just need to go back and clarify somewhere in there that you're not combining the two.
Need to give proper voice to the fact that if you don't want the potential at all ever for those two to be charged at the same time, then I need to in some way write that so it precludes, they're mutually exclusive in some way.
or we can change 201F so that if you voluntarily come to register your animal and it's after the deadline, then it's a $15 late fee. But if for some reason you are found to have an unregistered animal, not of your own voluntary nature, then it is this fee. And then 201 doesn't fall under 201
Right.
anymore. It's a separate standalone fee.
I like that.
That seems fair. I mean,
If you walk into the city office March 2nd and say, hey, I messed up,
Yep.
I forgot to register my animal, okay, $15 instead of your regular 5, 10.
It's 15 plus,
Plus your
Plus
5 or
the
10,
fee.
depending on
5 or
which
10.
one
plus
it
the
is.
way it's written, it's 15 per animal.
right.
Yeah, so when we have people that have 3 or 4 animals, we are very upset with this. Just an FYI, on that.
I think that,
We can make that change to 2201 and solve that
And
problem.
I do believe that they should be mutually exclusive just because we sat here and debated this for,
Yeah, and the
Oh my
intent
God.
was because we had recidivism on some of these where somebody's picked up a dog 3 and 4 times. That's really, I think, what gave rise to that to start with. So we addressed that, but we left everything else status quo. Well, if your animal is, and quite frankly, I guess that's all a matter of the eyes of the beholder, but $200 for an unregistered animal is a pretty healthy fee compared to what we normally charge, even for at large.
if we're going to then change 201F to include the unregistered, not of your own volition, then 204 would just be one fee schedule for at large.
Right.
And then you would get charged for both, and there would be a separate fee schedule.
Right. It just wouldn't become quite so onerous because you're set right now with the catch-all in 2209
Right.
minimum that the court can assess. Now, he can suspend it, but he doesn't typically. And he just, 200 is it. You go all the way up to $1,000. You've got somebody it's treating it like a B misdemeanor.
Right. All right, you want us to write that up? You want to write that up and we'll
I'll
consider
write
it at the
that
next
up.
meeting?
It's just that change to that section.
We'll just split out the 2 different fees in 204 to include 1 and 201F. The difference being,
And that's the second question. What would you like that difference to be? You want to set a fine of?
I would recommend just take the difference that's already established in 204, so that it's always 50, 100, and 200, 50, 100, and 200.
Okay.
Or, what would the difference be, 50, 100, and 100?
Without a tag, your amounts are 100, 200, 300. With
Or
a tag,
50,
it's
100.
50, 100, and 200. So it doubles it, but it doesn't, because otherwise it would have to be 1, 2, 4
Yeah, we didn't-
without a tag.
Yeah, trust me.
So you
I just
can't,
got one along.
I know, I'm just saying, you can't say doubles it because now you're changing numbers.
On this one, I said double it.
By the time it's your 3rd offense and you still haven't registered your animal, I don't have a lot of sympathy. I'm gonna be honest.
Do we want to leave 209 alone, or look at reducing the fee schedule?
That's up to you. There's really nothing there that's ever been a major issue. It is high, but it really, at this point, it only comes into play in an ordinance that does not have specified penalties.
Right, we
Like
just addressed
2204, 2209 never applies to it directly because you specify.
So it'd have to be some other random.
Yeah, and you're taking care of 2201 by doing this, so you would never apply 2209 again.
Very good. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting to consider making that change.
That change.
for the citations and the permits, what will be done with those?
What are our options as far as, there's one that's already been,
I think you said there's 2 pending.
2 pending, but
I'm not that you judge these sorts of things,
Of
but
course not.
as the prosecution, I can go in and just tell them I'm going to dismiss out the 2201, because we've already got the enhanced amount that they're being charged for 2204. That will take the $200 out of it, which is
Now, can you clarify very quickly, are court costs split on every citation?
Yes. They're an administrative fee. I get to repeat this every court date. It's an administrative fee that we charge each and every individual defendant. And no, we don't charge you more if you avail yourself of your constitutional right to a trial. You may certainly do that, but you're going to pay the same freight if you're not exonerated in the process.
anything else under 15? Yeah, moving on to 16, discussion of the land bank. As you will recall, we talked about this at our last regular meeting, and there was some concern as to whether or not the recommendation was to have 3 or 4 at-large members. Went back and reviewed the approved minutes for the meeting. It is in fact 3, so the recommendation is that we change the makeup of the land bank board to consist of the 5 sitting commissioners and 3 at-large members, for a total of 8. Which, yes, is an even number, but under the recommendation, the mayor would be a non-voting member except in the matter of a tie. So you get 7 voting members and 1 person is absent from the meeting, you get 6 voting and it's 3-3, then the mayor would vote. Otherwise, or the chairman, I'm sorry, not the mayor. So that is a recommendation out of the land bank as far as changing the composition of the land bank.
No, it was,
Do we want any changes, considerations, recommendations? We want to write it up and include it in our next meeting as something that we can potentially approve. Crickets?
I still think it's a fabulous idea, but it was mine, so.
So modest. All right, Brenda, if we would please include that on our next agenda for approval. And I will try and get with you between now and then. I don't think we need Brad's help writing that up, although I'm sure he'll correct us on verbiage, but we can rewrite that paragraph and do it ourselves. Or I can do that myself. See the point in.
She'll let you read it, or he'll let you read it. That would be your.
Item 16A, consider building fee reduction in case of First Baptist Church. And Brad, on this one, I'd like you weighed in, but considering that there are 3 sitting commissioners that are members of that church, I would recommend that the 3 of us recuse ourselves, step out of the room, allow the 2 remaining commissioners to figure out what they want to do about this. And then we'll come back in.
You don't have to leave the room, you just don't necessarily participate should you recuse. And in this kind of an instance, is there a direct monetary gain? No. Is this the impression or perception of some element of impropriety? And I think that's just using that term very loosely. That's a decision that you get to make. I don't find this one necessarily to be objectionable to have the 3 who are directly involved with members of the church who are directly participatory in that particular organization recusing themselves. It does just lead to, our hope is that they both agree on whatever it is that they do. Otherwise, I have no idea who breaks the tie on that kind of request. Because the statutory scheme, the statutory scheme only allows me to break ties when you're trying to appoint a replacement member for this body.
So the guidance from our attorney is no ties.
Okay.
I still think it is in the commission's best interest, just in an abundance of caution, that
I have no disagreement with that.
I don't want to establish a precedent. So I don't get to stretch my legs, but we will pass on to.
I do have some concerns, and it would be a concern for anyone that came before us, even if they were a 501c3. $3,000 a building permit, and I understand it's a $1.5 million project. I really do absolutely get that, but we will run into precedence issues.
My personal opinion is I would love to see us gain the property tax money from that $1.5 million property.
We don't.
Oh, their tax, darn it, I was like, we got this. You're a church. Oh, man. I was like, come on, what objection can I have to this? I don't have an objection to it, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know that we can forgive all of it. I think that would be setting too big of a precedence, as much as I would love to look at you 3 and say, yep, just do away with it. But I'm good with a reduction of some sort.
Just the 2 of you.
Because you know that no tie rule you just gave us? We're on different sides of the fence. You reiterated.
I just said no
Am I allowed to
tie
ask-
because
am
we
I-
don't want to be here all night.
Am I allowed to ask these very fine individuals out here if they have an opinion?
I would absolutely encourage you to.
Okay. Well, I don't feel like it's it's always
I
the
know,
mayor who
I know.
asks, so it's really weird. Anybody? Cynthia?
I would just say, how have you done with it in the past with the ones that are tax-free? How do you have treated these in the past? Have you given discounts before? And what were those discounts?
Trying to think of what other nonprofits have built.
But in the future, if nonprofits want to build, oh, I don't have to pay that, I can go and, we have a lot of nonprofits.
Rick?
I know the Rock Island just did their building permit, they had to pay the building permit. Although they did not ask for forgiveness, but they paid the full building permit fees. And, you know,
Those are revenues that are put for the budget too. So if you run into a whole bunch of people that you guys are reducing it for or doing away with the fee in itself, you're only hurting the money budgeted for the city itself.
I think it's safe to say we probably didn't budget for this $3,000 permit fee because you don't plan on a $1.5 million building going up.
But you do pick a number of monies
Yes,
that
no,
you
I-
hope to make in that
I
year
get
and
that, but I'm
hopefully
saying this $3,000 was not specifically budgeted. Jeff, did you have something to add? I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, on that, I don't know if I'm out of line or not, but I think the Rock Island building permit was $125.
I was gonna say, it was a much
Well,
different.
I mean, we would
Right,
gladly
I
pay,
realize
we'd
that.
like to maybe offer up 10%. Would that be an agreeable number?
I say, I would like to see this number come below